Okay, team, I'm back. You guys better enjoy this. This is going to be one of the last times that we actually get to start an episode, you know? Only get to do it one more time. You gotta enjoy these times. Okay. Episode 7, Requiem of the Golden Witch. That's funny, I think I said Requiem of a Dream at the end of the last episode. Good morning. Today is the day of the funeral for the Golden Witch and her game. The days of the game have now ended, and fond memories are all that remain. Here the cold hard truth will be revealed and the game will meet its death. There is a bit of difficulty. Interesting. Okay, also I'm on display capture. Let me switch to game capture just so I can alt tab properly. Wonderful. Let me close a bunch of shit here. I have way too much stuff open. Switch this to this. And let's get this Jimmy rockin'. And let me also turn the game audio back up because I have it reduced. There we go. It's undoubtedly nothing more than fantasy. It could not possibly have any relation to real persons, organizations, places, or events. Surely not. I do own the game. I'll prove it after. I proved it once already. I own it on Steam. I've owned it for like 5 years. Okay, I just forgot to play it. Earth to earth. Ashes to ashes. Dust to dust. Illusions to illusions. And dreams to dreams. The dream is something drawn in the sand between the coming and receding waves. Something so fragile that it is wiped blank each time the waves draw back. For this reason, the heartless might sneer at the drawing and call it useless. However, no wave will ever come again to wipe away the dream she drew. Her final beautiful dream will not disappear for all eternity. Come now. Try to picture it. Picture it as the gentle afternoon sunshine on a warm spring day. As though that light would never dim again. After all, it is such a wonderful thing. Witness to your final dream. Publius Virgilia Maro. The suspects were gathered in a room and several inquisitors were reporting on the results of their investigation. Their uniforms closely resembled those of Eisern Jungfrau, but they were slightly different. Also different were the badges signifying the department. Then came the sound of someone clapping their hands once. It was the lead female inquisitor. It was her signal that all reasoning had been completed. For your attention, it is now beyond doubt. The preceding logic has proven the non-existence of your alibi. At the other end of her pointing finger was a quivering maid with frightened eyes. Her name was... No, that wasn't important. All that mattered now was that she could have freely entered the locked room study where the victim was found, and furthermore, that it had been proven that her claimed alibi for the time of the crime was contradictory. Shaking, the maid tried to continue her illogical pleading, but all her arguments had already been destroyed. With this, we have found sufficient proof for the whodunit and the howdunit. Know that your position as the culprit is now an unshakable fact. You must be joking. Why would I kill the master I loved and respected so? I have no motive, no reason. Who did it and how? Know that these are all that need to be established. For your attention, I beg to inform you of the following. Know that motives are unnecessary and mysteries. The Inquisitor spoke coldly. Okay, the last thing I did want to say, I didn't do like a final suspect. A final like suspicion tier list of people that we're like suspect of. Shannon, Jessica, Rosa, Cannon, Rudolph. The top most suspicious, Rosa, Rudolph, Shannon. After finishing her witch's prayer, Virgilia stepped back from the casket, which lay on an altar bedecked with many beautiful roses. In her place, Battler moved to the front of the casket, wearing his territory lord's cape. Though the cape was supposed to represent dignity and majesty, it somehow made Battler look smaller. Battler held a book with a majestic binding in his hand. The King James Bible. It was a game record that had just been written. Or perhaps it was a tale. A game. Or else a fragment. Written in it was the dream that would be more enjoyable for her than any other. This is really sad so far already. Battler pressed it against his forehead and contemplated for some time. ... Then he kissed it and laid it gently in the casket. It was placed upon her chest. It made her look like a little girl clutching her favorite stuffed animal as she drifted off to sleep. I butchered that so hard, I apologize. This story is my gift to you. The only one there ever will be. This tale will be shut up with you in your casket for all eternity, so no one will be able to read it except for you in your casket. Shut away in that cat box, the only unchanging, inviolable, eternal tale. In this way, no one will be able to defile her tale. No one can deny it and no one can argue against it. Belonging to just me and her, just the two of us, this is the one and only certain truth. Interesting. Those bastards. A man dashed through a town wrapped in twilight. The daytime hustle and bustle of this charming old-fashioned village, which combined tradition with stylistic beauty in the classic style of the last century, now seemed like a mere dream. The orange setting sun was already hidden behind the clock tower, and the narrow alleyways were rapidly descending into darkness. As the gas lights began to turn on, they only made the darkness of the twilight stand out all the more. The man sprinted. There was no time. He had to hurry. He'd had several experiments to do and things he had to check, and it all had taken longer than he'd expected. Yes, there's no mistake here. There. The whodunit and howdunit are all you need in mysteries. In the mystery genre, the motive, or the whydunit, is given the least precedence. The only thing needed for a murder to exist is for a culprit to commit it. No part of that requires a motive, so it's usually the most ignored element. In fact, these days there are even some who call it an unnecessary element in mystery stories. I would hard disagree with that. I feel like to truly appreciate it, you would need to know why the person did it, but if you determine the culprit with nothing but the whydunit, that's no mystery. That's propaganda. However, that doesn't mean you can ignore the motive. It doesn't make it okay to ignore the heart. So I'm going to raise my mic here. It's a little bit flat position of how I want it. There we go, it's a little bit better. We both know how enjoyable her final rest will be, so I doubt there is anyone who could disturb it. After all, who could possibly disturb the sleep of a child dreaming with a smile on their face? Well, I got bad news for you, bro. I think I know one person in particular that might want to, and she maybe was sitting with Featherine at the end of the last episode. Come. It is time for us to leave. If we're too noisy, we'll wake her from her dream. You're right. What else should you do with a sleeping kid except put a blanket on them, turn off the lights, and walk away quietly? After looking at the casket one last time, Virgilia turned around quietly. Battler did the same, but he then stopped and turned to face the rose-covered altar. Battler said his final words with his heart. As long as those words didn't leave his mouth, no one would ever know what they were. However, those words of the heart caused Battler's expression to change several times. At first he frowned sadly, then his face clouded with remorse, and then changed to a resigned, bittersweet smile. It flashed through several varied expressions. Then the final expression that crossed his face was, surprisingly, a gentle smile. Something rose to Battler's lips, however he bit it back down. There could certainly be no words to express the many feelings he kept in his chest. So saying anything aloud would probably be crude. Battler understood this and stopped himself from speaking once more with a resigned smile. Thank you. Oh, I've done nothing deserving of your gratitude. I'll leave the rest to you. After seeing Virgilia nod back at him, Battler turned away from the altar one more time and left the chapel. Virgilia also disappeared, and all disturbances that might have interrupted her blissful sleep were gone. Except for Burncastle. The Inquisitors listened with calm, no, scornful gazes. They listened to the frantic babbling of the maid accused of murdering her master. However, nothing she said could bury the fault in her own alibi. They were all mere emotional arguments. I loved and respected my master so much, I had no motive for killing him. No matter how much she spoke, it only made her look more and more like the floundering true culprit struggling pathetically. The whodunit and the howdunit had been satisfied. Sorry, one second, I need to change this here like this. And, okay. As for the whydunit, the motive, the heart, who would care? No matter how much she spoke of her gratitude for her master who had graciously fed her and given her a job when she had been left to starve on the streets after various misfortunes, that didn't help her case in the slightest in the mystery genre. Therefore, her motive didn't matter. All of that could just be squeezed out of the culprit afterward. An Inquisitor took out a roll of parchment and held it forth, cutting off the maid's sobs and protests. This is how you committed the crime. Know that this indictment has been received by the Great Court and that your arrest has been approved. Here is the warrant for your arrest. The motive is unnecessary. Know that such a thing is completely extraneous in the matter of pinpointing the culprit. With that in mind, I beg to inform you of the following. Know that we of the SSVD possess methods of forcing unrepentant criminals to reveal the truth. That's odd. I don't really know what they mean by that, but... Be advised that with these interrogation tools blessed by the powers of justice, we Inquisitors will strap up your limbs, burn them, crush them, hang you by them, and thereby wring the red truth out of you. It isn't even necessary for you to confess. Aides, arrest that maid. It wasn't me. I didn't kill the master. No, no! Okay, Giga Chad? Why does he kind of look like us, but not? I do not have a Discord server. I had one a long time ago, but I don't have one anymore. I can send you my Discord after, though, if you want to add me on Discord, but I do not, I don't have a server anymore. I might make one at some point, but we'll see. He looks oddly like our character, but not. Hold it right there. You've got the wrong culprit. A man kicked the door open, and the Inquisitors were all shocked at the sight of him. Why are you here? Know that you are no longer in charge of this case. Quiet. You find one person without an alibi and just assume that she's the culprit? Do you really think there's no need for a motive, for a heart in crime? Crimes are committed by people. There are no crimes without a heart. I'll never accept any theory that ignores the heart. Okay, kind of base. I like this guy so far. Know that your focus on the why done it is simply embarrassing. The why done it is unnecessary. Such a thing can be easily extracted through interrogation. Even the Great Court has already acknowledged that this woman is the culprit. The Great Court has heard your argument that the maid must be guilty because everyone besides her has an alibi, and they've mistaken your overconfidence and conceit for wisdom. If any one of the other suspects loses their alibi, your evidence so far proves nothing. Just look at how pathetic some of these other alibis are. Did the clock in the reception hall chime midnight at exactly the right time? Did the dog by the back door bark at everyone? So you've managed to prove the maid's alibi false. Congratulations. But does it end there? It may have been possible for her to do it, but does she have any motive at all? Are the alibis for the others absolutely perfect? This maid wasn't the only one with a false alibi. You have to keep on searching if you want to find the others. Was there some sort of grudge against the victim or some money-related problem? Don't abandon motive, don't abandon the heart. Dry mysteries where the motive can just be figured out later aren't worth anyone's time. If the maid isn't the culprit, then why did she fake an alibi? Even asking such a question is a waste of time. Know that we just have to interrogate her, wring out the red truth, and have her sign in red blood to everything that happened at the time of the crime. Yeah, you probably can do that. You can just use the torture of yours to squeeze out everything frankly and objectively as seen from the eyes of God. But you know what? I'll never accept mysteries and theories that lack heart. I already have taken over responsibility for this case. I even have a decree right here. Come now, aides. Know that there is no reason to hesitate. I order you to arrest this maid. When she gave this order, her subordinates hesitated, looking back and forth between their superior and that man. I won't let you. The real culprit's a different person. It's possible to use motive to find them, and the alibi trick's an old one. You can't forget the heart. Okay, I will say, as far as what this guy is saying in terms of, like, motive, the only person I can think... Well, actually, no, I don't know the motive for anybody about why they would do it. The only, like, really... The most simple one would be greed, that they wanted to keep all the money, but that's, like, a pretty, like, level 0 motive. I'm not saying that that's not what it is, but that seems like a pretty... That'd be a pretty mundane motive if we were to talk about, like, who the actual culprit is. Like, oh, yeah, by the way, they actually just... They just wanted the money. It's like, okay. I'm not saying that's not potentially for one character or two characters, or there could be people that are acting that way, but that seems like, if we're talking about Beatrice, there's got to be more to it. Like I said, top 3 right now, Rosa, Shen, and Rudolph. There's no need for that. We just have to find the suspicious ones who could have committed the crime, interrogate them, and squeeze out the red truth. On the off chance that they are not the culprit, then we just have to interrogate the next suspect. You call that reasoning? Stand back. We will arrest that woman. Know that this maid is the culprit. Oh, the barrier. It is forbidden for a servant to be the culprit. Oh, well, that's a real interesting thing to put. I also had to put an episode 7 start here, 1 second. Where's the thing? Doink, doink. Sorry, I'm editing my note right now. Episode 7. It is impossible for a servant to be the culprit. And like I said, and that's not too surprising to me. I don't think that Shannon is evil. Something doesn't click about that, but what did you say? The words of power blasted away the aides who were trying to arrest the maid. Van Dyne's 20 rules rule, oh my god, we're gonna get new rules. If you want to torture this maid, make sure you double check the alibis for the second wife and her lover first. The second wife and her lover first? You want to torture this maid, make sure you double check the alibis for the second wife and her lover first. There's only one character in the game that we know that got remarried, right? It was Rudolph. Because he had a Sumu. I don't know if he's actually married to Kiri or not. But this would be who they're referring to. Those two already have a clear alibi for the time of the crime. That an alibi? Damn it, a fool like you couldn't understand no matter how easy I make it for you. If you want to call yourself a Chief Inquisitor, try and figure out at least that much for yourself. Until then, I'll be taking that maid's arrest warrant. Then what about you? Can you prove that this maid didn't commit the crime? Know that she was clearly away from the kitchen at the time of the crime. What was she doing then and where? She can't prove it, I can't prove it, and you can't prove it. No one can. That's why we have no choice but to use these torture devices to interrogate her until the red truth is squeezed out. You can squeeze as much blood and truth from the true culprit as you damn well please, but know this. I won't let you interrogate or torture anyone who isn't that culprit. This is why everyone says you're too soft. All the suspicious must be interrogated. This is how we Inquisitors conduct our witch trials. That's right, we are Inquisitors. Felling evil witches is our job. However, we must not risk hurting the innocent. We must not suspect them. All humans have their own personal truths. Those should only be exposed when they commit crimes. We've been given the right to expose them, but there's one thing we can't do. Falsely expose them or use your warrant that you have to expose those on people that aren't deserving of it. No one, not even God, has the right to expose the innocent truth of those who haven't sinned. The maid finally realized that he was trying to protect her. I don't know who you are, but thank you very much. I'm really not the culprit. Yeah, I know. Your boyfriend said he'd be willing to give up everything to prove your alibi. You should thank him. That kid said that honor and reputation are worth nothing compared to you. This sounds like it's referencing George and Shannon, kind of, but again, I don't know if it's supposed to be parallels to the actual game. But if he does that, it won't come to that. Exposing the secret between lovers is a job for third-rate magazines. That's not mystery. I'll never allow for heartless reasoning. This guy's kind of based so far. Then for the first time, the man's sullen expression relaxed and he patted the maid's head unreservedly. I'm sure you two will be happy together. Still, meeting together in secret while on the job is hardly praiseworthy. Try to keep that to a minimum. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. These words were heard only by the two of them. The man had learned of her innocence, which could only be proven by exposing the secrets of a pair of young lovers, and he had rushed about in search of a solution, resentful of the arrogance of those trying to expose this by forcible means. The point of theory making is not to create a culprit, nor is it to trample the truth in the hearts of the innocent in the process. Heart matters. If you want to play the detective, don't forget the heart. Forget that and we're just intellectual rapists. Hey, Erika. Don't forget it. The Inquisitors couldn't argue back any longer after the man's forceful words. That man's name was Will. Okay, bro. What am I playing, fucking Metaphor? Boring ass name. But everyone used to call him by a different title. Chief Inquisitor and SSVD, the 8th District Repentance Enforcement Agency of the Great Court of Heaven. Wizard Hunting Wright. Willard H. Wright. That's the last thing I'm leaving behind for you all. If you want to be the next Wizard Hunting Wright, remember it. Never forget. Get it? Because he's like passing the title to us. New OP. Bum bum. I mean, I thought that Burncastle was gonna like brutalize this game, so it's gonna seem kind of weird if she doesn't brutalize this game, you know? Sorry, just the zoom in on the sprites kills me every time. The chapel. Ooh, I see you, Beatrice. I saw you. There's 2 people in that, but that didn't look like anybody we know. Bum 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 bum. I'm fucking very hyped right now. Jessica Ronovan, it was Gap and George, that's funny. Rudolph Curie, that was Goda, the Chiesters. Final Fantasy. Oh! No, this is the start of the end. Yeah, the game actually pulled my theory document and it realized how fucking right I was, and it said, honestly, man, you don't need to play the last 2 episodes. And I said, okay, thank you. The Murder of Beatrice. It's an interesting title to begin with. Yeah, no, man, these games are long as fuck. We are... I think this game alone, we're now probably like the... like over 100 hour, like 130, 150 hour mark. Probably like another 50-ish until it's over. It's probably going to be like 200 hours. Now, the interesting thing here with the title of this being The Murder of Beatrice, the question is whether this is going to refer to the old Beatrice, the 67 Beatrice, or any of the potential people in the game. I would imagine it's going to be one of the latter two. Or sorry, the former two, not the latter. Quietly, quietly, the rain fell down. The rain of sadness dripped down the outer walls of the chapel, quietly washing away the dust of the world of the living. We also know that the chapel is going to be very important, given that there was that stupid figure that was, like, chiseled above the door. The chapel doors were open. For a wedding, only those with invitations would be allowed in. However, for a funeral, the doors would be open for all those who remembered the deceased. So this must be a funeral. A figure holding an umbrella approached the chapel. It was Will. Fucking Willard H. Ray. What kind of a fucking goofy-ass name is that? A reception desk had been set up in the entrance to the chapel. Oh, it's Cannon. As the figure approached, Cannon, who had been sitting at this desk, stood up and welcomed him with a bow. This is the receptionist desk. At a reception desk, we are collecting the names of all mourners. If you would sign here. Sorry, but I'm not here to mourn. I'm here to meet with someone. You came to a funeral to meet someone? A dubious expression rose to Cannon's face. Will pulled an envelope from his pocket and showed him the sender's name. My apologies. Please enter. Thanks. Could I at least have one of those? Thank you very much. I'm sure she will be pleased. Cannon handed him one of the golden roses being handed out to all the mourners. Will took it, silently bowed his head, and entered the chapel. Okay, I kind of fuck with Will. This guy's kind of sick. I don't like his name. His name's kind of goofy, but he seems kind of sick. And to think I'm out here fucking reading this whole shit aloud. Although I will say, I mentioned this to a friend, not on stream, but I feel like Umineko has had much better pacing than Higurashi did. Not to shit on Higurashi. Higurashi is still very good, but I don't feel like there's been as many lulls in the story in Umineko as there was in Higurashi. Higurashi was fine once you got past, like, probably around, like, episode 3-4. But especially, like, the starting part of episode 2 and 3 was really tough for me playing it, because it felt very samey in each of the episodes, but regardless. Inside the chapel, several people who appeared to be the family of the deceased were gathered together, and they all seemed to be recalling memories of the departed. Oh, Beatrice. Why? Why? Oh. Father, you must compose yourself. Why don't you rest in the waiting room for a bit? So obviously this is like some weird, like, outside of time thing. Yeah, I was gonna ask if it was a real name. I feel like I've heard the name before. Hey look, Rosa, this line came back. I killed her, I did it. So this must be in reference to the 67 Beatrice. So we could actually have a flashback here, but that wouldn't really make sense. So this has to be like an outside of time thing. I love that we're gonna get a whole nother set of fucking rules that this game has been operating under that we didn't know. And just for the sake of, I'm assuming the game will present it to us, I won't look them up because I feel like it would kind of make this a little bit more boring. I killed her. I did it. Absurd. How could that be, Rosa? Father was really bawling. Father was really bawling. It shows Kinzo pulling up from the 3-point line. Just total bucket. We see you. Yeah, Beatrice. I'm sure he didn't cry this much when Mother passed away. Hey, now's not the time to say things like that. Some sobbed, unable to conceal their tears, and some spoke softly of old memories. They were all remembering the departed in their own ways, it seemed. When Will approached the altar, several people turned around. Of course, none of them knew who Will was. Paying this no mind, Will walked in front of the casket on the altar, which seemed to be buried in golden roses. Inside the casket, there was no corpse. Instead, as though it lay there in place of a body, there was a single thick book with an extravagant binding. The space all around it was filled with countless golden roses. There were words printed on the book's cover. To my beloved Beatrice, October 5th, 1986. Miss Beatrice? If it was Mrs., then forgive me. I've never met you. However, allow me to express my condolences. He took the rose he had received from the reception area and placed it in the casket. He had absolutely no connection with the woman called Beatrice. However, since he had come to visit a funeral, he had to follow his minimum display of respect for the dead. As part of this, Will prayed for the passage of the departed to the next world. Late 4 October is fucking hilarious. Pardon me, but who might you be? I am Ushiromiya Kraus. I am acting in the stead of the chief mourner. This is my child. Lion? Lion? Pleased to meet you. I'm Ushiromiya Lion. Lion again, I don't know. We'll open this up here to see how they pronounce this, but I'm assuming it's not lion. So we should get introduced to one more character so that we have a full 3 rows. That's gonna be my prediction. Yeah, it's Leon. Interesting. Also, I still am gonna keep it in my heart that there's some suspicion on Jessica. I forgot to mention that. Just to save my 6 episodes of theorizing that it was her. Leon? Just who are you? It's written as that, of course, but pronounced Leon, or Leon. Well, that sounds more like you pronounce it Leon in English, but we'll go with Leon, anyways. Sounds a bit strange for a Japanese name, doesn't it? Will stared at Leon's face, wearing a confused expression. He hadn't seemed to be particularly interested in Kraus, but apparently Leon had drawn some sort of reaction from him. Rather than interest, it was more as though he felt like something was out of place. Kraus? Madam says that it is about time. Ah, I see. Ladies and gentlemen, if we're too noisy in here, it may disturb the dead. I've been told that the waiting room has been readied. Shall we move over there? When Kraus called out to everyone, they began to move towards the chapel waiting room. My apologies. Leon, could you entertain our guests for now? I will guide those others to the waiting room, or the others to the waiting room. Yes, father. It looked like a natural conversation with no awkwardness for either father or child. Father and child, is it? Yes, but why do you ask? Ushiromiya Kraus's child is supposed to be Jessica. Jessica's my little sister. Do you need me to call for her? No, that won't be necessary. Apparently some of the game was already being played right off the bat. Scratching at his head with an irritated look on his face, Will glanced around. Pardon me, but what sort of relation did you have with the deceased? None at all. It's a real pain. Then why did you come to this funeral? Since Leon was a fairly mild person, Will's behavior was met with nothing more than a blank expression. A normal person would probably have put on a dubious look long before this. Will scratched his head again and yelled angrily at someone other than Leon. I'm here. Isn't it about time you showed your face? The members of the Ushiromiya family had already followed Kraus's instructions and moved to the waiting room. By now, this cold, vast chapel, decorated with gold roses, was empty except for Will and Leon. So you've come. Inquisitor wizard hunting right. Is it Virgilia? Is that the... The girl's voice came suddenly from behind the pair. Is it Virgilia? Or is it going to be Burncastle? Oh, it's Burncastle. When Leon turned around in surprise, a girl had appeared out of nowhere and drifted down on top of the altar. She landed softly on the sacred funeral altar as though this was perfectly normal, crushing the golden roses under her shoes. Of course, Leon did not know this girl. Just why on earth were all of these people unrelated to the funeral, popping up one after another? I'm already retired. If you have a job you need doing, go ask the new right. No, you're the one I want to ask. I'm giving this case to you. Did you read the tale I sent you? Skimmed it. I don't know who you are, but please get down from there. That's a sacred altar. Snapping out of a daze, Leon told the girl to get down off the altar, but the girl ignored this completely. On top of that, Will kept on talking to the girl as though Leon wasn't even there. Leon, was it? Who is this person? You've already heard who. Ushiromiya Lian. There's no case of a person with that name appearing in any of the previous games. Is this your piece? No. It's a true and proper piece of this game board. One of the appearing characters. You're the game master. That means it's your piece. Hehehehe. I've just enclosed Beatrice's cat box in a larger cat box. Lian is one of the pieces who has a possibility of appearing inside it. Ah, I see. In other words, it's your piece. Bro is like set on the same thing. It's a piece I've placed, would be the correct way to say it. So you're saying this piece isn't your subordinate as Erika was? Erika? Who's that? Hehehehe. Damn, so Erika got what was coming to her. Erika? Don't try to understand. You'll just get a headache. Lian didn't have a clue what they were talking about. However, it seemed clear that, though neither of them were familiar, they both knew a lot about the Ushiromiya family. I don't know what you two were talking about. So now the only question that I start to wonder here is, was this actually a whole fucking thing about canon not existing, and that this character that we're seeing here was snuck onto the game board the entire fucking time, and then this person is the person that was calling Natsui? Because now it's already starting to feel like that's who this is. If we were to assume, if she says this is a piece that she placed, it's starting to sound like this person has a possibility of existing. And this person, I think, is a boy. Can't really tell. But they have a very androgynous sounding voice, which would also add to the fact of what Natsui was saying. But regardless, I don't know what you two are talking about. At any rate, you there, miss, please get down off the altar. I asked this as the successor to the Ushiromiya family headship, so older than Jessica. Again, now we get to the Natsui thing again. Did Natsui actually have a fucking pregnancy? Even Lian was finally forced to speak in a raised voice at this girl, who continued to chat while casually standing on the altar. However, the girl ignored this completely. On the other hand, Will did show a reaction. The successor to the headship is supposed to be Kraus. My father Kraus will be the acting head until I turn 20. When I turn 20, I am to succeed the headship. First I've heard of this. Can you prove it? It seemed that even Lian was starting to get ticked off by now. That calm expression seemed to twitch slightly. This is the successor's silver ring of the one-winged eagle. Is that proof enough for you? A silver ring? The gold ring of the head has appeared several times, but I've never heard anything about a silver ring for the successor. I don't remember Kraus or Jessica ever wearing one of those. Hehehehe. I'm glad. It seems you read it pretty well for skimming. When a witch hands you a story, you never know when something absurd will pop up, especially when it's a great witch from the Senate. Who in the world are you two? Sorry, but I don't have a clue what you're talking about. If you finish offering flowers for the departed, please make your exit. It seems you two are not worthy of our family's hospitality. Lian finally ran out of patience. These were the strictest words that this gentle kid could unleash. However, Will and the girl seemed not to care at all. I didn't come here because I wanted to. We're wasting time, so let's move onwards. Right. Try and beat this game. As the Game Master Burncastle, I invite you to join this game. I refuse. Why? I'm retired now. Reasoning and mysteries aren't my business anymore. How do you intend to spend the rest of your life? Is is wizard hunting right going to give up witch hunting? Oh, there's fox hunting and clam hunting. I didn't come here to discuss the rest of my life with you. So you came here to refuse. Know that your powers of deduction are truly a sight to behold. Then do as you will. Haha, get it 'cause that's his name? Go wherever you please. That is assuming that you can leave the place. So? What are the terms in payment? In truth, Will had already given up from the beginning. He knew that he was incapable of refusing an invitation from the great Lady Burncastle. Who killed Beatrice? That's my game. In payment, I'll forgive you for your insolence and let you leave this chapel. Okay, so this is interesting. Burncastle's game is who killed Beatrice. I like the angle of this, though, kind of throwing us a curveball here at the end. So we're going to answer our story through another story. Interesting. I've heard that witches who have no love for boredom are very fond of insolent speech. It's only for hags who've tired of life after 1,000 years. I'm still plenty young, so what I love to do to rude men like yourself is dream up horrible fates in which to trap you. So, who's the enemy? There is none. There's no one to stand in your way. We just want to sit back and watch you make your beautiful checkmate in this game. I've even found you an ally. That's what this Leon is for. Hmm? After hearing that name spoken out of the blue, Leon frowned once more. Apparently they were moving things along without Leon's knowledge or understanding, which was truly irritating. Leon is a member of the Ushiromiya family. Since no one in that family knows you, Leon should prove to be a useful ally. I fail to understand what you are talking about, but I can't help you with anything unless I know the details. There, see? With help like this, it'll be a piece of cake. Entertain me and my master, wizard hunting right. Ao may be a polite theater goer, but I might throw popcorn at you if I get bored. Got that? Will scratched at his head with a displeased look on his face. He wasn't at all interested in getting involved, but by now he realized that he couldn't disobey Burncastle's orders. Excuse me. Then he approached the casket and pointed at its rose-filled insides. You asked me to solve the case of Beatrice's murder, but Van Dyne's 20 rules, rule number 7, it is forbidden to have a crime without a corpse. That's a devil's proof. Maybe it just isn't inside the casket. Unless you can prove that no corpse exists, this is mystery. Ooh, okay, I like this already. I like this a lot. Without any spoilers, of course, I know you guys wouldn't at this point. What would you say is, like, the general consensus? I know you guys said that that Chapter 8 was very well received. What about Chapter 7? Because I'm already liking how this is starting. Rule number 1 is forbidden to have a crime without all clues presented. Don't worry, everything is gathered here. Interesting. Sorry. I know I really don't need to be writing this down at this point, but we're still going to for the sake of it. Why not? That's a devil's proof. Maybe it just isn't inside the casket? Question mark? Unless you can prove that no corpse exists. This is mystery. ... Really? Japanese people hated 7 and 8. That's surprising. I wonder why. I'm looking forward to it. Much more well received in the West. Interesting. Let me put this down here. Sorry, I'm just like editing my notes here because I realized I forgot to add shit. MC this time around is Will. Some, I don't know, we'll just say some God King detective. I should say Inquisitor, technically, but... It's surprising there's such a big divided thing. And lastly... Sorry, I know this is taking a while, but... Okay. There was no change to Will's unsatisfied expression. Since people hated... Wow, that's... So that manga ends differently than the game. Would you say that you like the manga ending more? I don't know if you're a part of more of the Western or Eastern cult of thought. Or school of thought, rather. I know that the manga has really high reviews. That's so wild that there was such a big disparity. Which means it's probably going to have to do with something to do with the ending. And I wonder if it's going to be... Because the way that this is posed to me right now is this feels like this is going to be like a... It's just different, same story, different... Okay, I see how you're saying. I would say that my thinking right now is that we're probably going to end in like a Shakespearean sense. I don't know if we're necessarily going to get like a happy ending. I don't know if you would call it like a Shakespearean like comedy or if you would call it like a tragedy, but that's kind of the vibe I'm getting from this, is that we're probably not going to have a happy ending. The fact that episode 6 ended the way it ended, and now the fact that we know that Burncastle and Featherine have taken over this game and they seem to be pretty like, I don't want to say wicked and twisted, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a not so happy ending here. But, sorry. Damn, so are you guys saying that after episode, or chapter 7 and 8, or episode 7 and 8, is it going to be an on-stream manga reading for the last two? Because if those two are different, that'd be kind of fun. I kind of like that idea. Regardless, we'll worry about that later. There was no change to Will's unsatisfied expression, but he seemed to have understood that everything was at least in order. From the moment he was summoned by an uninhibited, fickle, cruel great witch of the Senate, a mere inquisitor like him was bound to be treated as no more than an underling. He had never possessed a way to refuse her. So you want me to find out who killed the owner of this empty casket? Fine, I accept. However, you'll let me do things my way. As you like. Is the manga like appreciably different at any other point, or is it really just like the last two? I don't know if it's like other parts of the story are maybe presented differently. I guess it depends in what is different in 7 and 8. Interesting. First off, I need to make you understand what's going on. Yes, that would be a great relief. Leon's face was a goulash of displeased expressions, or goulash, if you want to enunciate it better. Seemingly nonplussed, angry, and confused all at the same time. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't read the whole manga. I would just probably read, like, definitely the last two, and then... Or if there's, like, a select few that are more interesting. Over here. It'll be faster to see it for yourself. Wonderful. Please lead the way. Of course, yeah, because they obviously wouldn't want it to be exactly as long. Makes sense. Will signaled with his chin for Leon to follow him and spun around. After snorting once in an unsatisfied manner, Leon followed Will while looking deeply skeptical of the latter's ability to explain any of this in a way that would make sense. That's what I'm saying, bro. As she watched the pair leave the chapel, Berncastle sneered silently at them with a cold smile on her face. As the Miko of the Great Witch of Theater-going, drama and spectating, Featherine something Aurora, and the Witch of Miracles, I, Berncastle, announced the start of this game. The tale's title is Requiem of the Golden Witch. Spin tale fitting for Beato's funeral. Hee 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 hee. Well now, let's see just how you drag out the guts. After watching the pair leave the chapel, Berncastle's form evaporated into the empty air just as she had arrived. All that remained was her unpleasant cackling. Outside it was still raining. When Cannon saw the guest and the head's successor approaching the reception desk, he bowed deeply. Good work. You can take a break now, so would you mind leaving? The first child of Krasanatsui was given the silver ring of the head successor and will succeed the position of family head upon turning 20, mild, polite, and without any clear faults except for being too young. This youth is more suitable to become the next head than any other and is adored by Kinzo. Interesting. Character seems to be being kept intentionally gender neutral. Member of the SSVD, the 8th District Repentance Enforcement Agency of the Great Court of Heaven, Inquisitor, ranked Archbishop, 1st class, goes by the name Right of the 20 Wedges, or Wizard Hunting Right. He was an ace inquisitor in his youth and was feared for being both ruthless and merciless in his work. However, at some point there was a change in his work attitude and his previously flashy escapades became a thing of the past. His current style is often fickle, alternating between laziness and obsessive bursts of energy regarding mere trifles. By now everyone has given up trying to understand him. He has already submitted his resignation and had it accepted. Only a few days remain before he will lose the name of Right. Interesting. Very, very interesting. I'm just trying to see if any of these... I don't think these are that massively different. Some of these might be slightly different. Huh. Okay. It's Canon. Yes, as you wish. Canon bowed deeply, then disappeared. You don't bother to remember the names of your servants. Our family has many young servants coming in and out, and they are usually replaced quite frequently. Anyway, what's going on and how are you going to explain it to me? Who are you and what business do you have with this family? Of course, I'm not really in need of a satisfying explanation. I'd be just as happy for you to head on home. There is no going home. Not for me, not for anyone. Could you please give that a rest? Stop speaking in confusing riddles like that all the time. Even I have limits to my patience. If you don't want me to see you off, should I call Genji or Goda? Stop talking. Look at this. Yes, I can see what it is. It's one of the memorial roses. Are you going to show me some kind of magic trick? Will took one of the flower offerings, then showed it to Lian, as if to demonstrate that there were no mechanisms or tricks. Then he slowly lifted it upwards. Is it going to turn into like Halloween candy or something? That's going to be my best guess, because I think in the rose garden that's what she did. Watch. Yes, I'm watching. Is a dove going to fly out of it, or is it going to be flags and fireworks? Huh? Will threw the rose. Anyone would have expected it to fly in an arc and land in some puddle amid the wind and rain. The betrayal of that expectation struck Lian dumb. Initially the rose Will had thrown had certainly flown in an arc. It swished rapidly through the air. However, as soon as it was about to pass from the shade of the eaves into the rain, it stopped right in midair, as though the air surrounding it had turned into syrup. Oh, I'm Canadian, we love our syrup. That wasn't all. As it hung in midair, the rose's beautiful golden petals began to darken one after another, and it became a black husk like burnt charcoal. And even after this happened, it remained suspended there in the air. What sort of trick is this? Ah! Don't move. Lian had moved closer to try and touch the remains of the rose which still hung in the air. Will had roughly blocked the way with his arm. It was as though he was telling Lian that leaving this place meant certain death. This chapel has been cut off from the fragment. We're currently locked within a maelstrom of compressed time. What do you mean by that? Explaining is a pain, so I'll give you the short version. Basically, unless we play along with the witch's game, no one can leave this place. What are you talking about? The funeral is already over. I'm sure some people will want to return to the mansion or the guest house. We can't be locked up in here. If you got a problem, that witch is the one to hate. Being stuck in a place like this isn't any more pleasant for me. That girl's your friend, right? Make her stop all this weirdness. She's probably sitting in a spectator seat with a bucket of popcorn about now. Even if I call her, she won't come. What on earth is going on? That short sentence described all of Lian's feelings at that moment. However, Lian had seen the rose Will threw wither in an instant in the rainy darkness. Lian tried doing the same with another rose, but the effect was exactly the same. No one would want to use their own body to test this fearsome something that could make roses crumble instantly. There's only one way for us to be released from here. We have to play along with Burncastle's game. You mean the one who killed Beatrice? That's what she's telling us to investigate. If you could tell me about it, it'd make things go more quickly. That fickle witch will be totally satisfied. You'll be able to get rid of the two of us, and I get to go home in time for my date with Diana. If I keep her waiting too long, she'll start tearing up the sofa again. Tearing up the sofa? Is Diana a dog? Who killed Beatrice, you say? That's hardly something to go barging into a funeral and start asking the family about. Questioning the family of the deceased is one of the basics of the mystery genre. Just give it up and accept it. I do know that Beatrice is the mistress of Kinzo, the family head. You really are a strange person. How do you know so much about this family? Are you sure you have no connections with us? Will knew so much about the Ushiromiya family because Burncastle had shown him all the fragments so far. Of course, he had no sort of connection with the Ushiromiya family himself. The very plane of his existence was on a different level. Very odd that you see people from outside this plane be able to step in. However, Beatrice died a long time ago. According to Genji, she passed away before the mansion was completed. Yep, we heard that. But the reason for her death is unclear. To be honest, this is the first I've heard that she was killed. Tell me about it. My name is Ushiromiya Lian. Willard. Call me Will. For the first time, Will introduced himself. The mutual introduction was finally completed, and Lian was finally able to talk with him on an even footing. However, Lian took a deep breath and looked up at the sky wearing a vague smile. Will. Call me Will. I'll call you Lian. Will. To be honest, even I don't know much about this person called Beatrice. I see. I guess it's called a game for a reason. If only Lian could have told him everything, revealing the truth without any effort from Will. Apparently things wouldn't be so easy after all. Everyone who enters the Ushiromiya family knows the name and image of Beatrice. It's because of the massive portrait hanging in the entrance hall, isn't it? The portrait was first displayed in April of 1984. Boom, so we finally have our answer. Portrait, we know it was 2 years prior, we never had a specific date, but portrait was first displayed. I'm sure there was probably some way that you could divine it, I just knew it was 2 years. It was first displayed in April of 1984. Really? How is it that you know so much? Ah, well. It's about time I stopped finding that odd. I'm sure you'll just start speaking in riddles again. Lian was the successor to the head and lived with the main family. Kinzo frequently chose to speak with his successor. Because of this, Lian must have been used to chatting with people who were moody or hard to follow. Deciding once and for all that getting hung up on trivialities would be nothing but a waste of time, Lian was able to converse naturally with this unknown man called Will, as though the two of them had been friends for a long time. Everyone knows Beatrice, and yet no one knows her. Kinzo's the only one who's ever met her. The head seems to be particularly upset today. I'll find a good time to introduce you to him, so I ask that you adopt an appropriately reserved and polite attitude, Will. That makes things easy. I thought you'd resist a bit more than that. I'm used to speaking with the family head. I've learned to accept most unreasonable situations and just go with the flow. Burncastle had set up a barrier, cutting the chapel off from the rest of the world. To destroy that, they would have to find out who killed Beatrice. For Lian, who had been made to go along with Kinzo on many an occasion, understanding this much was all that was necessary. Interesting. Well, I mean, if we go by the 67 thing, you would assume it was Rosa, but then the other confusing... Oh my god, wait. Double meaning. Wait, double meaning. It all makes sense. Rosa's confession. Crazy. No, double meaning here. It's not just... I'm going to call my shot right now. I don't know why them saying it like that made sense. The idea would be that Rosa not only killed 67 Beatrice, but what if Rosa also unintentionally killed the older Beatrice? Because if we were going by the same old theory, that Rosa, who was younger than 67 Beatrice, was actually a child of old Beatrice. Maybe older Beatrice died during childbirth of Rosa. So it's a double whammy that Rosa not only killed 67 Beatrice, but she also killed OG Beatrice via childbirth, kind of. Could also be given the idea that she would be called a black witch if she killed whoever this like good witch, aka OG Beatrice was, you know? All I'm gonna say. The Ushiromiya family members were relaxing here and there around the waiting room. A light buffet-style meal had been set up, but it looked a bit stale and not particularly appetizing. I'm gonna put this in the notes too. I'm banking on that. I think there's some chance Rosa killed OG Beatrice in childbirth. But her confession was not... I should show this. Scroll down too for you guys. Even so, those voracious kids seem to find it intensely appealing. The only thing that George finds appealing is kids, okay? Nothing to do with the meal. The cousins had set up camp around it with Maria at the center. The adult siblings had also formed a group in a different corner. Perhaps because of Kinzo's absence, everyone seemed to be a little more relaxed. Lian, where did you go? And who is that? Mother, I was entertaining this guest of ours. Will, this is my mother Natsuhi. No introductions needed. I just need to hear what she has to say. Huh? Did you say something? No, he said nothing. This is Will. It seems he knew the deceased. Excuse me. With a smile, Lian casually smoothed over Will's words. He wants to know more about Beatrice. Do you know anything about her mother? Lian, the deceased is a woman to whom the head once owed a great debt. Nothing more, nothing less. This funeral is a ceremony for the head to repay the debts he made to her while she was alive. That is what I have heard, and there is nothing more to it than that. So this isn't a literal funeral in the sense of, like, she just died, but it's a continuous, like, thing. So it could be, like, the anniversary of her death, potentially. Thanks, Mother. Well, that's all my mother knows. Natsui was very resistant to the scandalous rumors that Kinzo, a man she greatly respected, had once had a concubine called Beatrice. Well, I hate to tell you, Natsui, I think he did. However, she also understood that the scandal was okay, never mind. I respect you, Natsui, my goat. Oh god, I can't wait to do the character tier list at the end. Holy fuck, it's gonna be so fun. Picking up that Natsui was in a bad mood and didn't want to talk about this anymore, Lian brought an end to that conversation before Will could say something rude again. Will, this chapel is the property of our family. So you're telling me to follow the family's rules. You'll speak in a manner appropriate for a guest of the family, and you'll conduct all your conversations through me. I must ask that you follow those two rules. I'll work on that. The actions of this Burncastle witch have caused us all a great deal of inconvenience. Because of that, I'm willing to help you. However, both of us stand on an even footing, so make sure you don't forget it. And I thought you were just some pampered rich kid. You got guts. I must be prepared to shoulder the Ushiromiya family's future, after all. Got it. Let's solve this crime together, Watson. I'm glad to have your cooperation. I wouldn't want to keep your dear cat Diana waiting. Don't you need to feed her soon? Is that like a Sherlock Holmes reference that he made earlier? Because it sounded like it was a pet. I would imagine it wasn't like his girlfriend, because if your girlfriend's like scratching up the couch because you won't be home, I think you might have a problem, man. I gave her extra food today, so she should be good for a while. I'm surprised you realized Diana was a cat. I figured a woman who scratches, that's what I'm saying, when you keep her waiting would be a bit too eccentric. So, who will you talk to first? Anyone. Everyone. Those ones over there are Krause's siblings, right? From right to left, that's Aunt Ava, Uncle Hideyoshi. Over there is Uncle Rudolph, Aunt Kiri, and over there is Ushiromiya Rosa. When she was a girl, she once got lost in the forest and bumped into a woman calling herself Beatrice in a hidden mansion. I know I shouldn't be surprised anymore, but you really do know everything, don't you? So you know about that story too. I managed to overhear her saying that today. It looked as though it was bothering her, so I pretended not to hear. Real model student you are. Dude, I'm gonna say, I like Will. He's like the perfect mix of like asshole and being kind of funny, okay? I'm really liking him so far. I want to ask about it. You're asking this of the model student who pretended not to hear because it just might be a painful topic. Even this outrageous arrogance is nothing compared to Kinzo. After muttering this several times mentally, Leon shrugged and nodded at Will. Oh, it's our great successor. And who is this? Oh, Aunt Ava. This is Will. He came to offer flowers for the departed. But who cares about that? Tell me everything you know about... He says he wants to know about the deceased's connection to the Ushiromiya family. Leon smoked with a bright smile while pinching Will's butt. His butt? Yo, chill on his butt! Will silently protested as though saying, even for a gag, that hurts. But Leon just played dumb and smiled at Ava like a model student. Her connection to the Ushiromiya family? Well, what is there to say? It's probably more accurate to say her connection to father. We can be honest here. She was Dad's mistress. If you call her that, Natsui will yell at you again. He's indebted to her, right? Hehehe. Yes, of course. Ahahaha. Well, there you have it. I have no interest in anyone but Rosa. I do believe that you said you met with Beatrice, Aunt Rosa. The music and the rain stopping. Rosa. The rain stopped so that the track Rain could start. This whole time Rosa had been hanging her head. Leon's words made her shoulders quiver. She just suddenly came out with it today. It's a bit hard to believe. It's the truth. I killed Beatrice. Great, our work here is finished. Don't get ahead of yourself. Rosa broke down crying and laid her head on the table. Kiri and Hideyoshi tried to console her. Rokenjima is covered by a dense forest. We only know about one tiny portion of it, just the mansion, the rose garden, and the little path that leads to the harbor. Since ages ago, there have been stories about how Dad built a hidden mansion somewhere in the vast forest that no one knew about, and that he had his mistress living there. Rosa probably came up upon that hidden mansion by chance. But Aunt Rosa, why would you say you killed Beatrice? If I hadn't taken her out, she never would have died. She was so innocent, like a chick. I took her out, so she just followed along obediently. She stayed right behind me, trusting me completely, and because I made her take such a dangerous path. Did you make her walk that way because you were hoping she'd slip and fall from the cliff? I never meant to do that. I just thought she'd like to see the ocean. No. It just looked like the path that would be hard to walk. And I thought it would be easier going if we went down the cliff first. No, it just looked like the path would be hard to walk. Oh, sorry, I added harder. I was like, huh? That's not what killing someone means. It was an accident. It was an accident. Or it's an accident she never would have had if I hadn't brought her with me, right? It's my fault. And then I abandoned her when she was covered in blood and ran home. It isn't your fault. Beatrice had never seen the ocean before. You showed it to her for the first time ever. She was probably so excited that she just happened to take a bad step. How can you... Beatrice is grateful to you for what you did. Of course she doesn't hate you for it. Really? Is that... really true? She was the one who begged to see the world outside the fence, right? Though it was only for a short while, you made that dream of hers come true. If I were Beatrice, I would thank you for that short bit of time. If she knew that you've been suffering all this time for it, she'd probably feel bad herself. Beatrice is grateful for what you did. You're the one who taught her that the sea is blue. Aw, that's so cute. Is that... true? I guarantee it. Will made that statement openly and boldly. No one could tell how Rosa took those words. However, they had apparently been enough to remind her to take a handkerchief out of her pocket and wipe her eyes. Thank you. Even now, Beatrice is whispering those words to you. Thank you. Rosa wiped her eyes with the handkerchief one more time and hung her head. It no longer looked like a fit of sobbing, but more as though she was speaking with the Beatrice of that day within her heart, one last time. That was a lot of confidence you put behind a claim you can't back up. Back up? Is that really necessary to comfort a woman? I misjudged you a little. No, so you're saying you told her a nice white lie, but it's not even really a white lie because... For how many years had this tormented Rosa? Now, for the first time, Rosa would probably be able to face that innocently smiling Beatrice who had seen the ocean for the first time in her life. She was the only one who could forgive Rosa. Now the two of them could finally speak together. I don't know who you are, but thank you. I wonder if she forgives me. You've beat yourself up about it for nearly 20 years. It's far too long. She's telling you to knock it off. Also, the other thing that we had mentioned about Shannon, and the whole theory about Shannon being the kid of that Beatrice, would be that if Shannon is 18 or 19 years old, one of the two, she would be 19, right? And in the last episode, we had the whole thing about how 19 was such a precious number. It was so important to the story, right? This is another thing on top of it, that I would imagine that Beatrice is probably 19 years old in the game. And I think that Jessica and Battler are 18, right? So she's telling you to knock it off. That's right on, Rosa. The more you grieve, the sadder Beatrice would be. You too. Thank you. I don't know if I will be forgiven, but I'll keep on speaking to my heart to see whether she'll forgive me or not. Thanks, you two. Sorry for showing you such an embarrassing side of me. And I'm sorry to say this right after saying something so pretty, but I want you to talk to me. Tell me what happened back then. Will. Thanks, but it's alright. I'll talk. Hiding this and keeping quiet about it for so long might have been my greatest sin. Exactly when was it that you met Beatrice? Upon hearing this question, Rosa closed her eyes lightly, reaching back to a past she didn't want to remember. It was about 20 years ago. 20 or... might have been 19 or 18 years ago. I'm sorry. I've tried to force myself to forget it for so long that I've nearly forgotten that part completely. It should have been 1967. Brunove had guaranteed that with the red truth in the third game. Yep, he did. That's right. It was probably about 1967. I can't remember what happened as clearly as a picture. I'll never forget. If it's tough for you, don't feel like you have to tell us. Yes, clear as a picture if you don't mind. Damn it, that hurts, Leon. What does? I took it very hard when I found out that my tutor had told Mother about something I'd shared in confidence. I lost control of myself and ran deep into the forest. This tale had also been told in a previous fragment. Back when Rosa was just a kid, she had gone deep into the forest, found a hidden mansion, and met with a mysterious woman who called herself Beatrice. But the forest is so thick, it's hard to just move around in it. It's hard just to move around in it. Sorry, take my glasses off, Al. I even surprised myself. To think that I made it so far in such a dense forest. I was tormented by twigs and sharp leaves over and over again. However, that wasn't enough to bother me on that day. After all, I wanted to disappear into the forest and vanish forever. If by some chance there really was a witch's mansion in the depths of the forest, I hoped that she might take me to the land of happiness, or else turn me into a frog and make me a resident of the forest. Also, how fire of an image is it? Of Rosa going into the forest as not Beatrice and like leaving as Beatrice if she like took up the mantle. I don't know, there's something sick about that. Then you reached the hidden mansion Kuadorian and met a woman who called herself Beatrice. Yes, I did. Was that Beatrice the same as the one in the portrait? Yes, they were the same person. Beautiful blue eyes, golden hair, a black dress. It truly was the subject of that portrait. When Father first had it hung, I realized that the 20 years I had spent trying to forget must have seemed just as long for Father, if not even longer, and I was racked by even greater guilt. That's an interesting thing to posit, though, is that, to put this here in the notes, is that the portrait is a drawing of the 67 Beatrice, indicating that, at the very least, I should say, if this account is to be trusted, that portrait was made nearly 20 years ago, which is interesting. Stop there. Are we sure this is the same Beatrice that Rosa met? Immediately Kiri spoke the question that Will had been thinking of. It would be too rash to assume that the Beatrice Kinzo met was the same person. I don't think it is. The time and generation were different for each. Beatrice is supposed to be that lady of leisure who sent Dad all that gold shortly after the war, right? Using Beatrice's gold as a foundation, Father revived the Ushiromiya family and got super rich. Then he bought Rokenjima and moved over. Rosa's meeting must have been at least 10 years after that. 10 years after that. Which would not make sense unless Kinzo was being like an insane diaper sniper. I don't think it's the same one. I think it's a different one. Although it doesn't necessarily change the rest of my theory, but I think that there was a Beatrice before that. A woman with free control over 10 tons of gold could hardly be some little girl. That's what I'm saying, exactly. And 10 more years passed after that before she met Rosa. Rosa, about how old did the Beatrice you met look? Okay, so 18 to 20 is what I remember. She looked older than I was at the time, but even so it looked as though she might just be on the cusp of adulthood. Exactly the sort of age of the Beatrice in the portrait. Did she look middle-aged or past her prime? That's fucked up. If I had to call her an adult or a child, she was clearly closer to being a child. There's no way she was middle-aged. And isn't that strange? We have the Beatrice you met and the Beatrice who gave Father the gold, but their ages don't match. Yes, exactly. In other words, they're different people. Different people who look very similar and have the same name. You know what that's called? Mother and daughter. Thank you, Hideyoshi, thank you. It might have been her daughter. It makes sense for them to look alike if they were mother and child. His mistress's daughter. It is possible. Perhaps Father had an illegitimate child with the Beatrice who gave him the gold. Bro, why are they just confirming that I'm just the goat right away? So the one Rosa bumped into is Beatrice 2. Yeah, 67 Beatrice. We don't call her Beatrice 2. It makes those ages work out nicely. I see. In other words, there are 2 people called Beatrice, and I think there's more. Hate to tell you. Kinzo secretly raised his mistress's child in a hidden mansion. That would make logical sense. Everyone nodded, agreeing. However, Will's expression was slightly unsatisfied, and he scratched at his head. The other thing, too, that I was talking about, if Shannon was the child that he produced, if there was another child, so if there was Beatrice 3, aka Shannon, if under the theory that I was operating, if that was the possibility, I don't think that he raised the child in Kuwadorian, because you would imagine that some of the things that were delivered to Kuwadorian, like you would still have deliveries, but they stopped after like 67, 68. The only thing that's interesting is the 1 year time gap, so I wonder if they were like stockpiling and taking things enough that the person could stay there, whoever it was. So it's hard to say. I don't want to say 100% on that one, but we'll see. So it seemed that this funeral exists for the 2 Beatrices he couldn't hold a ceremony for because he'd kept them a secret. Rosa, I know you probably don't want to remember, but tell me about the accident. After Beatrice fell, was she still breathing? I think she said that she was, as far as I remember. Oh, I thought they said that she was still alive, but she was like on the cusp of death. Her eyes were open wide. She fell upside down head first and knocked her head against a sharp crag on the rocky beach, and she fell from such a height. Her skull had split and caved inwards. That beautiful golden hair was stained red with blood almost instantly. Was it the sort of wound that showed at a glance that she was undoubtedly dead? Yes. I saw the insides of her cracked head. It had caved in deep enough to fit your fist inside it. No one could be naive enough to see that and still hope she was alive. Yeah, there was a statement that said that she died. Well, do you really need to ask anything more? No, I know. I'm not saying that she didn't die. I'm just saying that she might not have died, like, instantly, but I don't remember what the red statement said. She definitely did die on the beach because Runaway had the red statement. I just mean that she, maybe didn't die, like, instantly right off the fall. She might have lived for, like, a few minutes and died after. Well, do you really need to ask anything more? That's enough for the time of the accident. What did you do afterwards? Yeah, how did you get back? I dashed away at full speed. I wasn't even thinking about calling for help. Well, you must have got back running along the shore, because I wanted to escape from that place as fast as I could. Half crazed, sobbing and out of breath, I kept on running about at random. Eventually, I came across a familiar lion statue. The chapel, yeah. Oh, the one in front of the chapel? No, the one behind it. Huh? There is a lion statue behind the chapel? That's weird. I feel like that was never brought up. Anyway, I made it to the back of the mansion. Or I made it back to the mansion. I couldn't tell anyone and I didn't want to. I stayed quiet until nightfall. It was so horrible of me. If I had hurried and told someone, they might have brought her a first aid kit. Okay, no, that's not happening. She might have been saved. How is a first aid kit going to help with a crushed cranium? You didn't kill her. Don't worry about that anymore. Then what did you do next? That night I turned over in my bed so many times I couldn't sleep. Late that night, I quietly called Genji on the phone and told him. What did he say? He told me to let him handle everything and to speak of this to no one. I spent the next several days terrified that Father would call for me and scold me brutally. Okay, this is interesting. So, Rosa told Genji. So at the very least, Genji was aware of this. And Kinzo would be made aware, of course. But he didn't. Genji kept on doing his job quietly just like normal. Father stayed locked up in his study, not knowing any of it. Or anything of it. What did that line say? Not knowing any of it. No, I read it right. Okay, I guess I'm being slow. At the very least, none of us ever heard about it. Genji probably managed to clean everything up nicely. That's interesting. After all, I expect they couldn't let knowledge of that child go public. Even if she was an illegitimate child, she was still his own flesh and blood. It must have been tough for Father not being able to hold a real funeral for her. I guess that's why we're having this funeral. And then, that's all I know. And that's all I know too. I'm not hiding anything else. I've told you everything. I swear it. Will scratched at his head, letting his gaze wander. It had taken Rosa a lot of determination to make this confession, but it was nothing particularly special for Will. Yeah, we're not learning anything new. It had been little more than a review of the information he already knew. Thanks, Aunt Rosa. Is that enough for you, Will? Are you satisfied? That's enough. It was a nice review. To Will, Rosa's memories gave only information that was already known. This was the first time he'd heard all about her running back to the mansion after Beatrice fell to her death, but none of it was particularly surprising. Apparently Rosa really didn't know any more than this. If he wanted to learn something beyond the fragments given to him by Berncastle, he would need to find new testimony. Leon, tell Kinzo that I want to talk to him. It looks like we won't get anywhere without asking the man himself. Where are you going? Off to cool my head and organize my thoughts. Don't follow me. Well, pardon me for asking. Please take your time. After giving an elegant bow, Leon made a face, tongue sticking out. Unless Will had eyes on the back of his head, he couldn't have seen this last bit. Will returned to the chapel by himself. The cold air and the monotonous sound of the rain were comforting. So how's the game? And he had come here for a little peace and quiet. No sooner had he let out a sigh of relief than the voice rang out. I think I butchered that line, sorry. No sooner had he let out a sigh of relief than that voice rang out. That's one for you to answer. I thought it was going to be Lambda for some reason because of the song. It was as though she'd been sitting there all along. Berncastle appeared on top of the altar once more. Apparently she found this particular altar extremely comfortable. Battler annoyed me over and over with his incompetence. You're very competent compared to him, so it's a lot easier to relax. Unlike Ushiromiya Battler's games, I have nothing standing in my way. It's easy. That sort of game has already ended. Tales can be enjoyed twice. First you love them, then you tear out their guts. Hehehe. You think I'm a butcher? Well, do you think you know who killed Beatrice? Rosa's confession is something I already know from a previous fragment. There was no brand new information. We're still at square one. Hehehe. Unless Ushiromiya Kinzo tells us what really happened, we won't get any further than this. Don't tell me that sweet-talking Kinzo into spilling the beans is all part and parcel of this game. If it were, I'd die of boredom. Kinzo refuses to speak of the truth and is himself the king protected by his castle. But it wouldn't be any fun to have that stand in the way of your game. I won't torture. It's not my style. I know that. As a game master, I will grant you power, so that you can get the truth from Kinzo, of course. Ooh, a new statement color? Still wearing shoes, Berncastle stepped into the castle, picked up one of the flowers that had been set as offerings, and blew hard as though scattering fluff from a dandelion. When she did, a single petal broke off and drifted down towards Will, no longer gold but with the shine of a transparent crystal. The detective's authority? Huh. What's that pathetic ability? No. This is your invitation to the auditorium. The theater-going authority? Granting that is supposed to be forbidden without authorization from the Senate. I'm granting it on my game board. Who's going to stop me? Though the crystal flower petal danced in the wind, it wouldn't fly away anywhere until Will accepted it. Will remembered how useless it was to argue with witches, and he snatched it up. When he did, the petal flashed brightly for an instant, melted into Will's palm, and disappeared. Entertain me if you can, and try to enjoy yourself. You must also be interested in seeing what the guts of Beatrice's game board looked like, right? Not really. After Will's rude answer, Berncastle vanished into thin air, leaving behind an obnoxious laugh. After clicking his tongue, Will turned around, visibly annoyed. When he did, it felt as though his gaze crossed that of a shadowy figure standing by the door in front of him that led outside. Who's there? Oh, well, well, well. Pardon me. I heard a voice, so I wondered who it was. Ah, Shannon. So you're running the reception desk this time? Yes. I've been taking it in turns with Cannon to run the reception desk. And where is Cannon? A short while ago he was ordered by, Leon to take a break, so he's resting now. So you don't know Leon either? Huh? Of course Ushiromiya Leon is the successor to the head and the only one permitted the silver ring. Why are you stumbling over that name when you've worked here for 10 years? That's... Don't worry. I don't recognize Leon either. Kraus is supposed to be the successor to the head. Jessica is supposed to be his only child. There hasn't been a single fragment with anyone named Leon in the Ushiromiya family. Upon hearing that Will didn't recognize Leon either, Shannon looked back up at him in surprise. Apparently she was a bit relieved to find that she wasn't going crazy by herself. I wonder if this is supposed to be a reference to like a looping thing? I mean, if it was Beatrice, it would be not surprising if she had some ability to loop, but again, Beatrice... I guess, well, it isn't her that's dead, it's other Beatrice. Again, regardless. However, her expression quickly grew uncertain once more. Where is this place? I think it's the Ushiromiya family chapel. However, something feels different about it. Also, I never knew that someone named Leon existed. And yet, Madame Kraus, the Master, Milady, and all the relatives all talk as though it's perfectly natural. I just don't understand what's happening. Leon is a piece placed by Burncastle. She also said that she'd switched to a larger cat box to place that piece. On top of that, it seems this world isn't a proper world, but one made out of several different fragments sewn together. It's as though this is a special stage set up specifically for this game. I'm sure she's nodding at my thoughts right now, laughing and chomping down popcorn. How long have you worked here in this world? 10 years. I see. So it really is a special stage. After all, right when I entered the chapel, I spotted Kinzo. Obviously, you shouldn't be able to, yeah. If Shannon has worked here for 10 years, then this is 1986, the stage of Beato's game. In that case, Kinzo shouldn't exist. However, he definitely was here a few minutes ago. Burncastle promised that all the information needed for reasoning was gathered here. She must have crammed all manner of stuff in here to make that true. I see. So it really is a special stage. You've served the Ushiromiya family for many years, so just how much do you know about Beatrice? I know the Master loved her deeply, but other than that, is that all? They say that she's the master of Rokenjima's Knight. That's right. The name of the ghost rumored to wander the mansion after night is also called Beatrice, or night after night is also called Beatrice. That brings the number of Beatrices to 3. The first is the Beatrice from more than 30 years ago who is said to have given Kinzo the gold. The second is the one that she met. The second is the Beatrice from 20 years ago who met Rosa. And the third is the Beatrice of the ghost stories who is rumored to be the master of the Knight on Rokenjima. And there's also a fourth one, which is like the human girl. That is probably like the next Beatrice, or is like the human representation of, or the girl that like combined the identity of Beatrice. You know, I said it during the theory stream that I think Shannon is the, you know. Furuto Erika's reasoning was probably correct. It started out as the legend of the evil spirit on Rokenjima, later on elements such as Kinzo's occult hobbies, the name and portrait of the mysterious woman Beatrice, and the epitaph got mixed in, and it all fused into the legend of the Golden Witch. And so the darkness of the night gained the personality of a witch. That's the third Beatrice. This is the veil the serial killer hides behind. Apparently she didn't understand a word of Will's sudden monologue. Shannon tried to follow along, but she seemed to be having difficulty. Don't waste your time trying to understand. You'll just get a headache. My apologies. Cannon doesn't know Leon either, right? Yes. Cannon was the same as me. Shannon and Cannon, huh? Call Cannon over here. I want to talk to the pair of you about something. When Will said those words, Shannon's face went blank and her eyes went wide. My apologies. We aren't allowed to leave the reception desk unmanned, so I can't leave. Ooh, are we gonna find out? Are we gonna get a sixth sense thing? It's weird that they won't appear in the same place at once. There was certain scenes where they did appear together, such as the dining hall. But again, the question then becomes that we've been presented a false picture the entire time. My apologies, we were not— okay, yeah. Then find a replacement and have them take over the reception desk until you get back. Yumi and Cannon. We, the 3 people who don't know Leon, need to talk. We've been told that one person is enough to run the reception desk. But no one told you there was anything wrong with 2 people manning it, right? We are low on helpers today, so we were told— yeah, see, and now that she's being difficult, We're low on helpers today, so we were told that the reception desk does not require 2 people manning it. Who gave you that order? Kinzo? Kraus? Or was it Leon? I will ask about it. Ooh. It was the one who orders me. I cannot disobey orders. Who is this person? I'll negotiate with them. You cannot negotiate. It is the one who orders us. Call Cannon over here. I hate theater going just as much as I hate torture. Slowly, Will pulled his right hand out of his pocket. When he slowly opened up his fist, a small bright glow emanated from it. The flower petal burn Castle had given him had become a glowing birthmark which sparkled. He held that hand out towards Shannon and slowly approached her. Call Cannon. I want to check something with you two. I cannot call him. Do you still wish for me to do so? If you don't call him, I'm going to watch your play. If you insist, I can call him especially. We're going to find out they're the same person? There was some kind of incomprehensible tension between the two. Will stood there, his left hand still in his pocket and his right palm glowing and stretched out towards her. Shannon just stood there, her hands still folded politely in front of her, her posture beautiful, and yet it felt oddly as though raindrops were sparkling and crackling in midair. I will now call Cannon. Do you wish to proceed? Will's expression had remained unchanged the whole time. Shannon's face was still kind and gentle, and yet the tension was as icy as a frozen lake. Beginners in chess will sometimes move their king into check without noticing. One might mercilessly capture the king in such a situation, but high-level players are supposed to calmly warn beginners about their mistake. If you take one more step, you'll get captured. This was similar to that. I see. So after all... I get it. That's enough. You guys can take it in turns to run the reception desk. Slowly, Will lowered his hand. Thank you for your understanding. Yeah, see, we're getting some fuck shit about. Now I'm starting to wonder if there ever even was 2 of them to begin with. Maybe the Sixth Sense thing is actually correct. The glow slowly vanished from Will's palm. That completely incomprehensible tension melted away, like a sugar cube in water. However, nothing had changed since the beginning. Will's expression and Shannon's expression were the same as they always had been. Was there any time where we had seen them in separate places? Or sorry, in the same place but with multiple people? The only time I can think about is the dining hall in episode 5, but again, like, it could just be that like any other magical thing, to see both of them at the same time is just a fraud. Like, it's not actually both of them there. I'm sure there has been, but hard to say. Interesting. I think this might be some Sixth Sense shit, or it's like a swapping thing, that it actually is one person and they're like pretending to be both, you know? Regardless. I guess that is a third possibility that I didn't really imagine. Will's expression and Shannon's expression were the same as they always had been, and that would also make sense that it could only refer to the same person. It would also make sense that Shannon could then be able to be him, so that the lie about Cannon being in the other room wouldn't even make sense, because it could technically be a weird like superposition where she could have been in either room, whichever one would be convenient for the story. Or I should say they, because it's 2 people. The question is, are we getting like a thing where they're like switching hats and they're becoming different people? Or if there actually is 2 people, as posited earlier, or if it's the Sixth Sense thing where somebody was dead all along or never existed all along. Because now I'm starting to wonder if we've ever seen scenes of them existing together. But Will's expressions and Shannon's expression were the same as they always had been. Oh, are you leaving? Footsteps approached them. It was Leon. I'm just standing here talking. I wanted to ask her something. What could that be? Did you find what you were looking for? Yeah. I'm honored to have been of service. That's a shame. If you were looking for an umbrella, I could have gotten you one right away. Did you convince Kinzo? I told him that a rare guest wanted to greet him. He says he'll meet with you. Did you tell him that I wanted to ask about Beatrice? Isn't that your job? With a slightly mischievous look, Leon turned away. Will scratched his head and shrugged. Isn't it mischievous? I think I say this every time that word comes up in dialogue, that mischievous is actually a wrong pronunciation, but I don't give a fuck. Ah well. Guess I'll get a chance to try this out. Will opened his right hand and showed it to Leon. It was just a hand without anything remotely remarkable about it. Leon's head tilted to the side in bafflement at this strange gesture. Good work. Your name was... It's Shannon. That's right, Shannon. Please continue manning the reception desk. Make sure you keep warm. Thank you very much, Leon. Shannon bowed deeply in response to Leon's kind words. There was not even a trace of tension in her manner. Let's go, Will. You won't want to miss your chance. Head's mood changes quicker than the autumn sky. Autumn, interesting. Good luck. Let's go. End of chapter? Okay. I want to check the VOD here for how long we've been going so far, because I am kind of tired and my throat is starting to hurt. We might just do one more. Next chapter, Ushiromiya Kinzo. God, we're just going down the fucking list, man. We just getting characters' names and shit. Of course, now when I'm fucking opening up on my other thing. Sorry, I'm just trying to check real quick how long this has been. Videos. Boink. And I think it was around the 5-hour mark. Why is my internet being so shit? I'm not dropping frames, so I don't know what's going on. Okay, yeah, it started around the 5-hour mark. We'll do one more chapter, and I'll probably call it after that. Because my voice is a bit sore, and I kind of do want to play this tomorrow, so I don't want to destroy it. Okay. I've brought Willard. Kinzo and Genji could be seen in the VIP room. Kinzo was sitting back in a chair, his eyes closed as though in a troubled sleep. My lord, the guest has come to see you. Kinzo slowly opened his eyes. Those eyes were red from crying. They regained their focus and slowly fell on Will. I am Ushiromiya Kinzo. Will. I'm Willard. Allow me to express my condolences. So you've come to visit Beatrice's funeral. Just who are you? I'm no one. I have no connections with anyone. Don't think too deeply about it. You'll just get a headache. Ow. I ask that you choose your words a little more carefully. What a strange guest. So, what business do you have with me? I want to ask about Beatrice. What? Kinzo's gaze grew sharp. Leon felt a bit lightheaded and wondered why this guy had to be so direct. Why do you ask? I thought you were no one. Why do you want to know about Beatrice? What purpose could it serve? Because I am no one, I can listen to your tale without bias and record it. You will probably leave this world before too long. If you die without telling anything about Beatrice, your children will adorn her with their own fanciful tales and write them into history. You entertain me, boy. You think yourself a testament taker? But that is wholly unnecessary. Beatrice is mine alone. No matter what anyone says, no one can defile our story. What they say is of no consequence. No matter how Kraus and the others misconstrue it, it matters nothing to me. Willard. The master does not like wills. He is not one to abandon anything while he still lives, so that's another interesting thing to put, which also seems to indicate further that I don't think Kinzo was the one that wrote the epitaph. Because why? Probably true. I'm gonna put that in the notes. Mention of Kinzo not liking wills. Also kind of funny for the double meaning of not liking him. It makes me think he, one, didn't put the portrait up. And two, probably didn't write the epitaph. I thought it sounded a bit unlike him. The spirit to struggle onward to our dying breaths is what makes us human. The idea that I would give up before my time and leave behind a will is laughably absurd. Yeah, that does sound a bit more like you. It's not your style to ask someone to write about the past just because you feel you might die soon. We know how deeply you love Beatrice. You are the model most worthy of respect that any of us know, and an example for us to follow in every aspect of our lives. Please, for the sake of us wandering souls, may we learn of how you loved her to the last, how your love for her guided you through life, and the strength of your love for her, so that your story might guide us through our own. You're pretty good at this. It's your fault for being so tactless. Boy, what do you know of Beatrice? A truly ignorant person would not hold any interest at all. The mere fact that you know her name shows that you are neither ignorant nor unconnected. Good point. The Beatrice I know of is the woman you loved, the one you met before the mansion on Rokenjima was even built. However, she probably departed from this world, leaving behind a daughter. That is the girl who was raised in Kuwadorian. Oh, Willard. There is no building known as Kuwadorian on Rokenjima. That name, Kuwadorian. You mentioned it when we were talking with Rosa, too. What in the world does it mean? You should have an idea by now. It's the name of the hidden mansion deep in the forest where his mistress's daughter lived. Interesting. So you actually know the name of Kuwadorian. Continue. You've sparked my interest. Kinzo shrugged and grinned. The one living in Kuwadorian was probably Beatrice's daughter. However, it seems that you didn't think of her that way. Oh. Then how did I think of her? As the reincarnation of Beatrice. That was why we had the whole homunculus angle. When Ushiromiya Rosa went to Kuwadorian, Beatrice told her a little about herself. In that conversation, she referred to you as Kinzo. It was the same when she spoke to you directly. Though she said that she thought of you as a father, she didn't call you father. She either didn't call you that or she wasn't allowed to call you that. That can only mean one thing. And what might that be? Reincarnation. You didn't think of your daughter as a child Beatrice left behind. You believed that the dead Beatrice had revived into a new body. Genji. Once in the past you spoke in front of Natsui and several other family members, stating that there had never been a child between Kinzo and Beatrice. I have no memory of saying this. Of course, this game's Genji probably wouldn't remember that. However, near the end of the first game, when the survivors all gathered in Kinzo's study, Genji was asked whether Kinzo and Beatrice ever had a child together, and he denied it, saying, I have not heard of anything like that. Well, to be fair, he would lie for her, right? So his testimony means nothing to me. I have not heard that. In a way, it was a perfect sort of answer for one of Kinzo's confidants. After all, in Kinzo's eyes, she wasn't a daughter, but Beatrice reborn. I see, so you're saying you could sidestep it. Will! I don't know what you're talking about, but I will not let you slander the family's head. This isn't slander. It's reasoning. However, I understand the heart. Beatrice was the woman you loved most. She remained that way even after death, for all eternity, and without fading in the slightest. However, given the child's blue eyes, beautiful blonde hair, and facial features which resembled Beatrice from a young age, if you had gradually begun to think that she might actually be Beatrice reborn, that wouldn't be surprising. I don't know why I'm thinking of this off the top, but I will say, once again, I still think that, I still believe the whole Shannon thing being, like, the Beatrice maybe of the game board when we're playing, but what I will say even further, I am still hooked on that idea that Hachijo is somebody that's on the island. But we'll leave it at that. My lord, shall I? Shall I throw this insolent man out? Genji asked Kinzo. For a while Kinzo hung his head in silence as though remembering something from his own past. Your daughter grew to be beautiful and nearly identical to her mother. You must have been ecstatic. However, it's doubtful that you were fully satisfied by this. After all, though she was Beatrice reborn to you, she didn't feel that way herself, exactly what Battler went through in the episode 6. How can you know that? You couldn't shake the feeling, or she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something out of place about her being called Beatrice. People never feel anything out of place about the name they were given at the time of their birth. However, she did have that feeling. That must mean that she was aware that the name Beatrice was not hers. It's a fair reasoning, yeah, I follow. In Kuwadorian, she asked both Kinzo and Rosa about who she was. Who am I? Everyone calls me Beatrice, and that does certainly seem to be the name of a great witch, as you say. But that's not me. I cannot use any magic. I simply have the soul of that witch sealed inside my body. Her memory would have returned. She was without a doubt Beatrice reborn. Her memory was coming back bit by bit. My magical rituals were helping her regain her memories one little bit at a time. So this is sort of the same as like the Battler thing with her trying to recover. You can see the parallels between the two. I don't know if we're going to get some weird fucker where we find out that there's some weird time loop shenanigans, time travel, Battler is Kinzo shit, but very obvious parallels between the two. Grandfather. There's no need to be surprised. If you line up the information in all the games so far, this is the answer it leads you to. The Beatrice on the higher plane talked about this in metaphor, saying that Kinzo refused to let the witch's soul escape even after death, and instead caught it and locked it up in a body of flesh. She also said that her power and memory had been sealed. If you match that interpretation of hers to this theory, it all makes sense. Willard. Thanks to a powerful magical ritual, the Master gained a reborn child of the late Beatrice. That cannot be denied. I won't contradict the stork, and I don't intend to doubt the depths of Kinzo's love for this woman called Beatrice. It's no one's business how a person chooses to show their affection towards their only living reminder of the departed. If she grew to look more and more like Beatrice and Kinzo's love gave rise to a new special emotion, I find that a very human reaction. You think you can understand my love? I'm not qualified to understand it. However, I'm also not qualified to deny it. Oh. Beatrice, please. Forgive me. Kinzo sobbed for a while, wiping away his tears. Because of love, he believed she was Beatrice reborn and raised her that way. However, somewhere in his heart, he might have felt pangs of conscience, telling him that he might be forcing his emotions on someone who wasn't really Beatrice. Then the Beatrice of Kuwadorian had an unexpected guest, Rosa. Unable to believe that she was the Beatrice that Kinzo desired and suffering from her inability to understand who she was, she expressed a desire to escape to the outside world. Sorry, yawning. Then she fell from that cliff and died. Genji handled that death, which couldn't become public knowledge, very quietly. Funerals aren't for the dead. They exist so that those who are alive can sever their ties with the dead. You could never do that. That's why it festered within you. Beatrice. Oh. Grandfather. You lost your mistresses. No. You lost Beatrice twice. Unable to let that sorrow show on the outside, you kept it locked up in your heart. And it eventually festered and turned to madness. That's what spurred on your abnormally strong interest in the occult in your later years. Oh, Beatrice. Beatrice. Why? Why did you leave me twice? Your smile. That beautiful hair. Those eyes. I mean, this is like kind of sad and all, but at the same time it's... Why did you die in my arms not once but twice? It's kind of sad that like he lost the first one, but I mean, if you were trying to mac on the younger one, man, you're kind of a fucking terrible person. Is that how much you hated me? Is that what he's gonna say? Oh, hey, see, I have water right here this time. But now Kinzo wasn't even trying to suppress his sobs. Sometimes he scratched at his head in anguish, other times he faced the heavens like an opera singer. Kinzo yelled over and over again, repeating Beatrice's name. Jesus. El Bozo. At that moment, there was a quiet sound of a door closing. Ooh, Kumasawa the gossip. The mentor of Beatrice, because you're actually Vergilia? Show us. When they turned around, she was already there. Kumasawa had appeared. If they already know that much, perhaps we can tell them the rest. Though if they know that much, I don't believe there's anything more to tell. No, we should tell them. As a woman, I've always thought that the heart of Kuwadorian's Beatrice is a story that should be told, and now someone has appeared who is worthy to hear it. I believe that now is the time to tell all without holding back. Kumasawa, do you know something about Beatrice? Of course she does. In the fourth game, we have testimony from the ferryboat captain saying that Kumasawa went in and out of Kuwadorian. Ooh, I guess I didn't catch that. Although we did know she had knowledge of it, Nanjo knew as well, so Nanjo, maybe. I'd be willing to bet that Kumasawa had different work shifts at the mansion in Kuwadorian. There was a young girl to be taken care of. Kumasawa, with her long experience in taking care of children, must have been of immense value, and the only woman really that could, right? That's correct. You might even call me her wet nurse. No way, I can't believe it. So everything Will is saying is the truth. Yes, it is a fact. There is a secret mansion constructed on the opposite side of the island for Beatrice. The existence of Kuwadorian is the truth. I don't know when Kinzo married his official wife, but back when Kinzo already had an enormous store of wealth and had bought Rokenjima whole, he built 2 mansions and set up 2 separate lives. Kinzo's children had also been aware of Kinzo's clandestine eccentricities at the time. It probably hadn't been easy to set up 2 lives. Moreover, Kinzo's wife had been suspicious and had sniffed around all the time. The master stayed in Kuwadorian as much as time allowed. He would sometimes pretend to go on a business trip and stay there for several days, treasuring the time he spent with Beatrice. It was not simply a father-daughter relationship. You could sometimes catch a glimpse of his great love for the late Beatrice, and it was a heartwarming thing. You can say it like that. I don't know, I get a different timbre from that, but... Sounds like he's gonna say like a lover. The way you say it makes it sound like he sometimes treated her as a substitute for Beatrice. Oh, if it sounded that way, my apologies. Beatrice probably accepted her father's love, however, I will not deny that she was sometimes forced to bear a love she didn't understand. Kumasawa's tone made it sound as though she was scolding Kinzo. As a mother who had raised many kids, Kumasawa had probably spotted that Kinzo's love was often of a mistaken sort. However, the more the girl grew to look like her mother, the more distorted and twisted Kinzo's heart became. Because of his deep love, it grew very, very twisted. You're right to scold me, my friend. I understand. My love is eternal and undying. However, there were times when I directed it at the wrong person, and I must acknowledge that. Grandfather? Wait, you don't mean... Leon, all humans in this world are tied to each other. Even if they do not notice, there is always some sort of tie. Those ties wrap themselves around people and bring them together. No way. Grandfather. Just as Kinzo had done, Leon had also wiped away tears and stared down at the floor. Apparently the truth had been too much of a shock for the young successor to handle. My lord, perhaps the time has come to speak of it. I see. So that time has come, my friend. Unless you tell us, none of the truth will become clear. My lord, I believe they may have the qualifications and the right to know. I know. Perhaps on this day of my fickle funeral, Beatrice in heaven has given me a chance to atone. Forgive me for not telling you this before now. Please don't do the angle that I think you're going, you fucking incest god. After taking a deep breath, Kinzo finally lowered the hands that had been covering his face and looked at Will and Leon with those red eyes. Grandfather. You listened to, Leon. Guessed. Willard, was it? Yeah. I thank you for giving me a chance to speak of the truth while I am still able. You must surely be a messenger from heaven sent by Beatrice. You have my gratitude. Beatrice isn't the one you have to thank. It was some witch. Well, I guess they're both witches. I do not care who it was. I have been given a chance. That is enough. Thank you, Willard. God, his name is so fucking boring. I'm sorry. He has like the... I like his character, but he's sort of just like, Willard. Kinzo stood up and held out his right hand. He was offering to shake hands. It must have been Kinzo's way of expressing his gratitude. Will responded. The two hands gripped each other tightly in silence. Excuse me. When they did, a bright light poured out from the gap between the two hands. Will felt as though something the size of a grain had burned itself into his palm. It was that power that Bernkastel had given him. The light grew brighter and brighter. However, it seemed that Kinzo and the others could not see it. Now I will speak. I met Beatrice. Beatrice Castiglione. Was she like Italian? I guess it would make sense with all the Japanese Axis shit. Beatrice is given a name. Given a full name. Beatrice Castiglione. That's a super Italian last name. Just before the end of the war, she came from across the sea. Interesting. I did have a theory like forever ago that Kinzo was like wounded in the war and saved. Oh god, look at you. You look like Kiri. You had white hair your whole life? So are you Kinzo? It's how grandfather looked in the past. I've seen photos. Just what on earth? It's the theater-going power that Bernkastel gave me. Don't try to understand. I'll just get a headache. You're getting the hang of this. At one time, Genji told Battler that he looked like Kinzo in his youth. Sure enough, though the young Kinzo wasn't exactly the same as Battler, they looked very similar. Allow me to introduce myself again. I am Ushiromiya Kinzo. Grandfather. Even the voice seemed to resemble Battler's somehow. Clearly Battler had inherited Kinzo's blood more thickly than any other. I did not want to succeed the Ushiromiya family headship. My being chosen as the head was nothing more than a prank of fate. In the Great Kanto earthquake, those in charge passed away and you were selected from the branch families. Correct. After all, grandfather was wise despite his youth, and he already possessed a dignity fitting for the headship, and he had 12 toes. Ha 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 ha, ridiculous. Those greedy elders were so intent on looking out for their own personal interests that they couldn't even decide on a new head. They were like fools arguing about who the new captain should be on a sinking ship. So since you had no connection with anyone in the main family, you were selected right out of the blue. It's all because of my toes. That's a crazy line. It's all because of my dogs. I got pretty toes. If only I'd had one fewer toe on each foot, my life may have turned out quite differently. In the Ushiromiya family, polydactyly was seen as a sign of good fortune. This was because it was a common factor among many of the greats in the family's history. It was all very pathetic. The elders didn't care whom they dragged in as long as it wouldn't favor any of them over the others. So they just happened to hear that someone in one of the branch families had 6 toes and decided that would do well enough. Precisely. The elders didn't care what sort of novice became the head as long as they could make him their puppet. In fact, the more ignorant the person was of how to lead, the better it would be for them. Grandfather. Leon, It is quite different in your case. You will be the one who inherits everything I have. That is the fate you were granted on the day of your birth. That is why I gave you that silver ring and raised you so strictly. You are quite different from me. You are already a splendid successor, of whom no one could be ashamed. Yes, sir. A puppet heir, huh? I doubt that could have been easy. Ha. Ha 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 ha. As he pondered about where to begin, Kinzo laughed bitterly. It would probably bring back nothing but painful memories no matter where he started from. The only thing that I'm starting to wonder is, like, was the two Beatrices, like, fucking BC in reference to Beatrice Castiglione, if that's how you order that, yeah, Castiglione. If we want to say in reference to that, is it that the painting that was done of her was like a spitting image? Because it could be that, like, he loved her so much, he's like, oh, baby, let me get a portrait done of you, you know? It lasted for so long, that span of grey days. That mind-numbing stretch of time I spent dead past like moss growing on a rock. I became the rope in the tug-of-war between the elders who thought of nothing but their own profit, and I probably could have snapped at any moment. However, people are far more resilient than one would think. Though I spent so many days like a dead man, I was not killed. So, I would have to search for death on my own. So we went to war. The next thing I knew, I had reached that age where I could no longer refer to myself as young without drawing laughter from those who were. They were long, dreary, grey days without any substance. And they lasted for a full 20 years. In 20 years, a person can be born, find a purpose, and even become their own man with their own place in the world. In short, if one truly becomes a human only when they have become a working adult, then I spent an amount of time long enough to create a human, doing nothing except playing the part of a puppet to those greedy old men. Ironically, though that time aged my body, it did not age my mind. In my heart I was still young, and I looked back fondly on the fulfilling days before I was summoned to Odawara. Only my body continued to age, and at some point the gulf between the two had widened to the point that it was hard to comprehend. So I could hardly believe that the worn-out man in the mirror was really me. No, it really wasn't me. It was the head of the Ushiromiya family in name only. I had no rights, no autonomy. There was no need for me to do anything other than what was asked of me. I was just a doll sitting there on the shelf gathering dust. I remembered nothing but lazily flipping through Western books I liked, locking myself in my own world, doing nothing but playing with roses and drinking terrible drinks. And it lasted a full 20 years. Before I knew it, I had a stranger for a wife. It wasn't any wife I had chosen. She was someone that the elders had chosen and forced on me for their own reasons, the daughter of some noble family or something. But that hardly mattered to me. I did not love my wife, but neither did I dislike her. I just didn't care. I fathered a few children, but that wasn't out of love for my wife. Few, usually, in reference to 3, just so you know. They were just born before I knew it. That's all there was to it. None of it mattered. No, that's not quite right. Everything was decided by someone other than me, and I simply obeyed. That was the job of the Ushiromiya family head. On some level, I felt as though my life was being slowly and quietly snuffed out. I can't believe it. You've always been praised for being such a bold and wise ruler, and yet you lived like that for so long. Leon, there's nothing so long and insubstantial as a life you do not live for yourself. Oof, that's a good line, holy fuck. And yet it passes in a blink. Take this to heart. Life you live for yourself. Living means having your own will. You probably were dead during that time. Precisely. I wanted to live. No, I wanted to die. What must a puppet do to die? Cut the strings. Correct. That would be death. It would be life. And it would be release. Yeah, I think the way that this is shaping up, it's going to sound more and more like Beatrice's, I think that Rosa might be the only one. Just the way that it was phrased, the reason why there's such a big gap between the two now, too. Before I realized it, the world had grown troubled. The war, probably. World War II, yep, the Pacific War. Japan had extended their war fronts too far to the east and west, and the tide of war was changing. Is this a Higurashi CG? It looks like one. Thanks to the influence of the elders, I was able to avoid conscription. Of course, this was not out of compassion for me, it was because I was their precious puppet. So the war never really felt that close to me. However, when I personally decided to abandon their protection, it was very easy. At that time, the Ushiromiya family had almost completely collapsed, and since the elders had apparently pilfered enough of the scraps to last them the rest of their lives, they seemed to care little for what I did now that they no longer had any use for me. So I realized that I had finally found my time to die. One by one, I cut the threads I was hanging from and began to search for a place to end my life. So you search for death on the battlefield. I thought that if I was going to die anyways, I should try. Please don't tell me I actually sniped the idea that she was like someone that saved him. That unironically, that was a total fucking guess. I'll have to pull up the clip. I should try to be of some use to someone. No, that's a lie. I probably just lacked the willpower to end my own life. The only thing that could be is he was just stationed somewhere and he met someone. War was a suitable excuse for death. I heard that your knowledge in public works and construction led you to being tasked with setting up facilities for the Navy construction team. And what a miscalculation that was. If I had just said that I had no useful skills, I would have been sent to the front lines where I could die at a moment's notice. So you ended up not having to go to the front lines. Some of the others were overjoyed at their luck, and this is interesting too because he mentions that he's a part of the Navy. So the thing with the Navy is he was also probably stationed on certain islands where you could make harbors and stuff. So I'm thinking Riben, I'm thinking Yonaguni, and I'm thinking Iwo Jima. But we'll see. Some of the others were overjoyed at their luck. It was the opposite for me. My only desire was to get my hands on the intoxicating liquor of battle and drink myself to death. I read that as bottle. The US planes did nothing but cut across the skies of that forsaken island. They didn't have even a bullet to spare for me, much less a bomb. Is this the time you met Beatrice, grandfather? Correct. She came to me from the sea. Where did you meet her? You mentioned an island. It was here. She came to this island. So you met here, on Rokenjima. What's going on? I heard that Rokenjima was uninhabited until you bought it, grandfather. I never knew there was a Japanese military base here. Yes, you could hardly call that a military base. It was just a cave. I was one of the guards of that cave. Interesting, okay. Sorry, I'm just typing notes. In 44, interesting. Due to the honorable defeats at Saipan and Guam, Japan's absolute national defense zone strategy was in shambles. Where had the gallantry of the start of the war gone? The old attackers were now the ones on the defensive. At the time, it was said that the final trump cards for the Japanese military were the so-called special attack weapons. It was said that these ultimate weapons were packed... Okay. There it is. And so one of these must have been stored on Rokenjima. A weapon with 1.55 tons of explosives mentioned. Insinuated that it's on Rokenjima somewhere. Incapable of sinking any kind of warship with a single blast. To strengthen homeland defense, the Navy drafted a plan to build a string of hidden bases from Hachijojima to Yokosuka, all to house submarines loaded with special attack weapons. Do they just mean nuclear weapons? I'm guessing not. I don't know when nuclear things were. I knew there was a base constructed on Hachijojima. Sorry, probably butchering these names. Hachijojima. The 18th island? Is that all that means? Because we know that Hachijotoya... I don't know, something there. To think there was one on Rokenjima too. Just what sort of fool decided it would be a good idea to plan a base on this desolate island? I have no idea. To better preserve its secrecy? Ridiculous. I could never understand what the higher-ups were thinking, and I didn't particularly care. These truly were ultimate weapons, able to take down large warships in a single strike. It was hoped that the pretense or the presence of submarines capable of loading these weapons in the waters just off of Japan would allow for a powerful sea ambush as a final line of defense. So, to aid in the establishment of a base with absolute secrecy, the uninhabited island Rokenjima was raised as a possible candidate. An investigation of the island resulted in the discovery of a large cave in the cliffs, and this was apparently deemed to be a suitable location for a submarine base. Okay. Was constructed. So you were tasked with aiding in the establishment of that base. Establishment? Certainly if you can call digging out a cave establishment. Not only that, the base was abandoned before its completion. Okay. Was attempted to be made, but abandoned before its completion. Why? Bahahaha. Because at the time, Japan no longer had any submarines large enough to carry one of those weapons. How truly, because they all got sunk. How truly laughable. What's the point in having a submarine base if there aren't any submarines left? If there's one thing that never changes, it's politicians and their meaningless projects. The base on Hachijojima was actually outfitted with those weapons and became a base for direct attacks. But Rokenjima was never supplied with... Oh, never mind. Not only that, they cancelled the construction work entirely, leaving only a crew of minimal size stationed on the island waiting for orders from above that never came. Could it be the fact that it was a hidden base sealed our fate? The higher-ups had already completely forgotten about this useless and pointless cavern. We were nothing more than guards for a mere cave. We spent our days farming, fishing, and playing with the dirt, all the while gazing up at the American formations flying past. Some of our group were relieved at the prospect of the war ending before anyone remembered we were here, and before any of us had to face a real battle. Of course, it was the opposite for me. I hoped beyond hope for the American troops to advance and kill me as soon as possible, and then on one of those hollow days. Let us go back there now. Back to the turning point in my life and my fate, when Ushiromiya Kinzo finally became alive. Okay, that's a really good stopping point, I think. Although, Castiglione, I guess there is a lot of Italian Americans, but come on, come on. The Salo Republic. Okay, that's gonna be the stop point for the day, because I'm tired and I don't want to blow my voice out. I want to see the character tab real quick. I don't know if they've added like young Kinzo, and it doesn't seem like it. Okay, well, we did our theory stream. I will clip up this VOD. I will try to have the theory stream up as soon as possible. Oh, excuse me. Hopefully sometime tomorrow. No guarantees, but hopefully. Episode 6 I did publish today, or it was yesterday, one of the two. The last 2 episodes took forever to process. We're finally getting some answers. Nothing that I would say is too surprising yet. I guess the base, the submarine base is interesting. The only thing that's odd about this is it sounded like what they were going to say is that the submarines being stored, like the weapons would be used. Now, I don't know if I just misunderstood the statement here. Let me actually roll back and we'll read, but they talked about how they made the base, but I don't know, I don't know if any of the weapons actually ended up on the island. It kind of sounded like it didn't. At the time, any submarine large enough to carry one of those weapons. What's the point? Blah, 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 blah. Outfitted and became a base. Yeah, right, but Rokenjima was never supplied with any. So that was the only thing I was thinking about, the whole Rokenjima explosion. The only thing I can think is maybe Kinzo bought some after the fact, but regardless, that's kind of the only thing that we have going for us right now. We're going to be on the dot on trying to figure out the, what the fuck the Rokenjima explosion is, because obviously there's something going on there, and I think that's going to be the first mention. I think there might be some possibility that the weapons were supplied and Kinzo might be fibbing a bit, but regardless. My voice is getting blown out. I'm tired. I'm going to dip now. Like I said, this will all be online as you can. Thanks for stopping, or as soon as I can. Thank you for stopping by if you did. And hopefully we will be on tomorrow.